Hello and welcome to the Complete Web Dev series. If you've made it this far, I want to congratulate you. You either have gone through the entire thing trying to become a full stack developer, or you're on your way for a back-end developer. Either way, this is the place for you. We are starting today our very first video of Chapter 9. Now, Chapter 9 is going to be all about JavaScript, and some of the concepts that we're going to learn here are going to be not unique if you've already done the PHP, but it's important that we do a little bit of recap, and then there are some syntax differences between JavaScript and PHP, and there's also some differences in how PHP and JavaScript behave, and so it's important for us to touch on those things. So we're going to do in this chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to do some very basic stuff at the beginning, talking about the tools, if you will, that are in our tool belt to use during JavaScript. And then we're going to move on to some more advanced concepts about JavaScript and what makes it unique and a little bit different than other programming languages. And then we're going to move on. We're going to build two mini projects in this chapter. The first thing we do is going to build a little game, and we'll just build tic-tac-toe. Okay, and the purpose of building that is going to be to teach us to basically use everything that we learned in JavaScript up until that point. And more importantly, it's going to help us become more familiar with doing a little bit of DOM manipulation through PHP. So what is DOM? D-O-M, that is Data Object Model. Okay, or I'm sorry, it is the Document Object Model. Okay, that is the DOM. And we are going to be talking more about that and what it is in future videos. So let's go and do a little bit of setup that we're going to need to do to get started, and we're going to actually get started with a little bit of JavaScript in this very video. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my screen, and you can create this anywhere you want. Let me get a drink of water real quick. My throat is still a little scratchy, sorry guys, because we aren't going to be using PHP. We don't need Apache running or anything like that. However, just for sake of organization, I'm going to put mine in my htdocs directory still. And so I'm in my htdocs right now inside my terminal, and I can just do a pwd for print working directory, and you can see I'm in opt lamp htdocs. And so in here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new directory. So I'm going to use make dir mkdir, and we're just going to call this JavaScript. What? I guess I already had that. But anyhow, what we're going to do is do make dir JavaScript and ls, and now you can see I have a directory, and if I cd into JavaScript and ls, it's empty right now. So what we're going to do here is initialize this as a new git repo, and in order to do that, we're just going to type git init, and now it says we have initialized an empty git repository. The next thing that we're going to need to do is set our upstream URL for this, and I have my GitHub already open and working, but you're going to need to set up your own repository, and we've done this before, so it's not anything new. You can go to GitHub and click new repository, and then that will help you along the way. So what I'm going to have to do is do a git remote, and then we'll do set URL, and this, you know what, git remote, I think we have to do add, so git remote add, and then we're going to add, this is going to be github.com:/JavaScript, and I named mine JavaScript tutorial on GitHub, so that's where you could go. And this will be .git. Let me just double check that that is correct. I forgot the, I need to add the origin. Add origin space github.com Parham Curtis. Yeah. Yep. And oops, since I'm using SSH, this is actually git at github.com. Yep. All right, I'm just double checking the command there. This will be in your GitHub repo when you create a new one. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter there and assume that that worked. The next thing that I'm going to do is we'll do git branch -m main. All right, whatever. And then what we're going to do here is we are going to go ahead and let's go ahead and create a file. So do touch. And let's just call this v1.html. Once we've done that, we're going to do a git status here. And it says we have untracked files, so I'm going to do a git add. And then we'll do a git commit -m. And I'm just going to put initial commit. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is we are going to git push -u origin set upstream origin master. All right, so now we are on the master branch here, and let's go ahead and create a new branch for us to work on in this video. So I'm going to do git checkout -b v1 for video 1, and now I'm on that branch, and I could check that by typing git branch, because you probably won't have this little bit set up here. So then what I'm gonna do is do a git git push -- set upstream origin. Oh wow, I can't spell. V1. All right, so we're good to go here. The next thing I want to do is I want to open this up in VS Code, and I can do just that by typing code space dot. And that's going to open the code editor within our JavaScript file here. And I have my v1.html. I'm going to move this to another workspace here so that we're here. All right, so now that we've started here, let's get started with a little bit of JavaScript. So one thing we can do is let's just do an HTML5 page. So I'm going to hit exclamation tab, and this will create our head and body and our basic boilerplate here. For the title here, I'm just going to change that to JavaScript tutorial. We'll save that. And then inside the body here, we could do JavaScript a couple of ways. One thing that we could do is we could put it right in the body by adding a script tag like this. Okay, and anything that we do in this script tag is going to be run in the browser as JavaScript. So what I'd like to do here is just to get going, let's do your traditional hello world thing. So in order to write to the screen inside JavaScript, what we're going to do is say document.write, and then inside this we're going to give it it's a function, and we're going to give it some quotes here, and let's just do hello world. Okay, let's save that now. And let's go back to our browser, and let's just navigate to localhost /JavaScript /v1, and it is v1.html. And you can see now on the screen it says hello world. Now I could have just typed hello world in the body here like this. And you can see that that works exactly the same. So why would I use JavaScript to do this? Well, JavaScript is a programming language, and as you well know, that a programming language is something that allows us to make decisions and make our websites dynamic. And so using JavaScript to write to our document, rather than just putting static text there, we may want to do that because we want to update or change text and that sort of thing. Let me see here. Let's talk a little bit about what JavaScript is. Okay, I'm gonna refresh here. I didn't save apparently. So I'm gonna refresh and now it just says hello world. The other way that I can use JavaScript right here in a browser is I don't have to add it to the to my file. I can right click and go to the inspector. And what we have in the inspector, we actually have a console here. And this console allows us to write JavaScript and interact with our document or our DOM. The DOM is a document object model. So it turns this document into an object inside of JavaScript and allows us to manipulate and get information from there. But if I wanted, let me show you an example of something I could do here. I could type alert, and inside quotes I could say JavaScript rules, and I'm gonna hit enter, and when I do that it pops up an alert and then the message says JavaScript rules. I can click OK to release that, to close that. Let me get another drink real quick. I apologize. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here with JavaScript, because this is very different than PHP. You remember how I told you that PHP, the PHP code is actually run on the server that it's being served from, and then after the PHP, Apache and PHP gets run, it sends the results of that to the browser, and then the browser just it paints it onto the screen. It just takes whatever's sent to it, the HTML code, and paints it to the screen. Well, JavaScript doesn't work like that. In fact, the server doesn't do anything with the JavaScript. It just sends the JavaScript along as plain code. And our browsers actually have the ability to parse JavaScript and run the JavaScript code in our browser. So instead of the code being a server-side language, it's considered a client-side language. And it being a client-side language, it runs on the client's computer. Meaning to run JavaScript code, it's not going to use the resources on your server. In fact, it's going to use the RAM and memory and everything on the client's computer who requests the files. So it's important to understand that JavaScript already gets a little bit more complex than, let's say, PHP, because PHP, we know the resources that are available to us on our server. With JavaScript, we don't necessarily know the resources that are available to us. It's going to be running the JavaScript code. And so we have to keep that in mind as we build complex applications, that we may run out of memory on some people's computers who have, or phones or anything else that's running it, who have very small amounts of memory and processing power. And so just keep in mind that JavaScript runs on the client's computer, and a lot of people don't think about that. But when I request this file right here, it doesn't process this script tag here in the server on example. Oops. Instead, what's happening is it sends this whole file, the text, back to as the response back to the browser, and the browser runs the JavaScript itself. And so what I could do is inside here I could do a document.write, and I can also do an alert, and I can say JavaScript rules. And so what's important to understand here is when I refresh, it runs JavaScript rules, and I click OK, and then it does the document.write. So that is not happening on my server. It's not happening in XAMPP. I don't even have to use XAMPP. But the fact that Chrome here and JavaScript in all major browsers has the ability to run JavaScript, it itself is running the JavaScript code. All right, so I think we are gonna go ahead and leave it at that. Now, you remember when I told, well, actually, before we end, I mentioned the document object model. And so when the browser builds this out, it creates in JavaScript the DOM. Okay, so that is a document object model, and that allows us to manipulate or access this information that's in here inside of our JavaScript code. Okay, and so when we do a document.write, we are manipulating the document object model, and the browser will know that it needs to repaint that onto the screen because we've added that with JavaScript. Okay, so I hope that helps. We're not going to do too much more in this video. I think just making sure you understand that JavaScript is a programming language that runs on the client's computer. It's not processed on the server like PHP. Now we are going to, in the next chapter, be using Node.js, and Node.js is a server-side language, or server-side, they take the JavaScript engine from a browser and they have put it on the server, and then we can use JavaScript to run on a server, and in that case it becomes a server-side language. But when you're dealing with websites and you're including JavaScript in response, it is considered a client-side language, and it's going to be run by the client's JavaScript engine inside of their browser. So I hope that makes sense, and we're not going to be doing too much writing to the screen, maybe a little bit like this, but as we go, we are going to show you the differences with JavaScript and how to set up variables and loops and if statements and all of that. And then we're going to do a couple fun little projects at the end to make sure we have a pretty good understanding of JavaScript before we move on to the next chapter, which is we're going to build an API, a backend server-side API we're going to use Node.js for that, and it's going to be a JavaScript project. So it's important to learn JavaScript as we go, whether you're going to be a front-end developer or a back-end developer. All right, with that, guys, I will see you in the next video. Please comment, like, subscribe, and if you'd like some free merch, head on over to freeskills.life, and if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you could go to patreon.com/freeskills. All right, guys, have a wonderful day.